This video is going to go over the WorkSet importer application. So this is a sister application, works in conjunction with the indexer or project indexer application. So that application will create a zip file of a WorkSet, and this one can be used to import that zip file into ProjectWise data source. So it doesn't have to be ODOT data source, it can be anyone. So external, if you're watching this video will work for you guys as well. So let's get started. As always, there's a help menu that takes you a link to our wiki page with this video and a help doc, the about, which will give you the version. So next is it's going to want to know what workset you want to import a zip file into. So you just hit the search button. You'll get to log into a desired data source. Then it will remember your last selected location. You want to make sure this is actually an ODOT folder structure, so you're selecting the PID folder here. And it's going to search it to make sure it has the required subfolders there. So as always, at the bottom there is a log, so you can check out and see all the details of what's going on. So next, you're going to want to tell the application what zip file you want to import. So you hit the import button. And it'll remember your last selected location. I'm going to choose the zip file and hit open. And you want to make sure that the zip file you are picking was created via the project indexer app, or it won't work and it'll tell you that it wasn't created. It'll be red down here. Also notice that when you logged into the data source, it will tell you what data source you're currently logged into and give you a log out button if you need to log into a different data source without needing to restart the whole application. Okay. So the next section gets populated once you have a valid zip folder selected and a valid WorkSet folder selected. And so what it's going to do is it's going to read that zip file, and all of the folders directly inside the zip file, so those root level folders, will get listed in here. And then you'll get to choose for each root server folder or each root level folder what folder you want to import into the selected WorkSet. So if it's your first time importing into this WorkSet, you're not really going to have any options. So it's going to say, hey, I'm going to create a new folder, and it's going to be named 301 Survey ODOT IMP. So this name is just going to be, the prefix is going to get just auto numbered. So I have a 300 survey, so the next number is 301. And then the ODOT is actually coming from the zip file. So part of the project indexer when you use the application is you have to say who is the owner of each of the root subfolders. And so then that is then used to name it so that when you do the import, you know who did that work. And then lastly, it's going to end with IMP for import so that you know that this was an imported folder. That is true for all the root subfolder levels except for the 990 WorkSet standards. Just the way the configuration works, you can't really have multiple ones of these. So this is always going to go to the 90 WorkSet standards folder. I'll go over a little bit of how the import is different with this folder compared to the other ones in a little bit here. So now what I want to do is go over all the options you have during import. So first is a checkbox to remove existing folder files not included on a re-import. So really, this is only going to play a factor if you're doing a secondary import or something after your initial import. And so what this is going to do is it's going to look at everything that was imported previously. So everything that would be like in this newly created import folder after you run it the first time. So when you run it the second time, it's going to say, okay, the zip file you're importing now doesn't have these files or folders that you imported the last time. And all those that it finds, it's going to remove. So basically, the imported folder will match the current submission, right? So that might be something you want to do, might not be something you want to do. In my eyes, I would tend to lean towards if you're like submitting a stage 1, importing it, and then submitting a stage maybe 3 and importing it. There's probably a lot of files that you had in stage 1 that you might have gotten rid of in stage 3. They don't really need to keep around. So I tend to lean towards checking that on, but that option's up to you. The zip file will get stored into the data source as well, so you can still always go back and see what was there for a given submission. All right. So the next one is really only for if you're importing a deliverable from like survey. And so what this says is use seed files as defaults, override current seed files. So what this means is in order for the configuration um, to find the seed files have to be named a certain way. So when you generated a WorkSet, so if I take a look at the seed folder inside this project, you notice that these design 2D and 3D seeds have a certain name. If you notice that name matches, the prefix matches the WorkSet name, right? And that is the default. So typically that is going to match. Um, and you can see further if I open up the config file real quick that the configuration for this given WorkSet, if I scroll down, it's saying, hey, the design model seed is this, right? It says OHDOT PID variable. When we scroll up, the OHDOT PID variable is using the WorkSet name. So typically, OHDOT PID should always equal the WorkSet name, but if you're an external running this, maybe you've done things differently. And for that reason, there is this little text box that lets you, whoops, let me free that since I don't really need that. So this variable right here, I let you define what it is just in case you are external that might have done something differently. Because this is what will be used to make sure that when I import the seed files from the zip file into this project, into this 990 WorkSet standard seeds folder, then it names it correctly, right? So when that's checked on, I'm basically going to overwrite these seed files with the name. So that way, what you delivered in the survey zip file should have these seed files. They might be named differently, right? And that's why when I import it, I'm going to rename them and make sure that they are the name that the configuration will pick up. So that was a long explanation, but basically you check this on and the seed files in the zip file will get put in here and overwrite the current seed files. That way you get the right coordinate system in those seed files. All right. If you leave it checked off, it won't overwrite these files. It'll just bring them in and put like a underbar ODOT, underbar IMP in there for you. All right. So I'll go over that also after the import. So really, this is only for if you're bringing in like survey deliverable with those seed files. So most of the time you're probably gonna leave that checked off. The other thing I wanted to mention was the case where you have multiple coordinate systems. So when you have multiple coordinate systems, maybe you have multiple locations that are far enough apart on your project that you need different coordinate systems for different locations. When that happens, you're supposed to have a different set of seed files for each location. So if that is the case during the import, it'll recognize that. And so when that case happens, you don't want anything that the configuration will pick up automatically because it's forcing the end user to pick the seed file so that they don't just automatically grab the wrong location. And so that will also be taken into account when importing as well. Hopefully that sums up. If you guys need more explanation, feel free to reach out to me. But those are those options. So the next option, a little bit more easier to understand, is the O4 reference files. So if you want to add the zip file to the O4 reference files folder, you just check this on. I'll show you after we import that the zip file does get stored somewhere else. So you don't necessarily need to do this, but it is part of the requirement of filing the project internally here at ODOT. So you can just do that step while you're at it and import, and it'll copy it over there. There's a sub option to overwrite the zip file if it already exists. So maybe you're importing a second time or a third time. If you don't have this check on, it'll just auto number it at the suffix end of the name. So it doesn't overwrite. So if you do this, it'll just overwrite the one that's currently there if it finds one there. So that one's pretty easy to understand. The next section gets a little bit, there's a lot going on here, but it's doing a whole lot that I think you guys are going to like. So the first option here is fix references directly using, and then there's a drop down. All right, and you get to choose which connected edition product. So this is popularly based off of what you currently have installed on your machine you're running this on. So you choose which connected edition product you want to use to fix the references. When the zip file is created, it packages up and it makes all the references local references. So if the zip file was created from like a network drive, then they're already local references. But say the person sending you the zip file, they were working in their own project-wise data source. When they ran the indexer, it actually changed all those references to local references. So if you send that zip file out, if whoever opens it may open up a dgen, those references will be fixed, right? When we bring them into project-wise, though, we need to switch them to the project-wise Explorer references. All right, and so this is one way to do that, and way it's going to work is it's going to open up all the dgen files. It's going to read all those reference data and see if it has a broken reference. Maybe it's referenced to a file that wasn't included in the zip file. It's going to figure all that out, and so all the references that it can fix, so that means references to files that was included in the zip file, it will go through and directly fix all those. It has that knowledge and will just know, okay, I need to go open all these files and I need to fix all these references to all these files. So that is a really nice option. It works better than the scanrefs option, which I'll go over next. Scanrefs is just a function built into Project Explorer. We'll go through and scan the files and fix references, but all that does is it takes the first file that it finds. So if you have duplicate file names, there's a good chance that it's going to fix to the wrong file. This way alleviates that because it's finding that information directly out of the dgen file. So I have that checked down. I feel like that's what everyone's going to want to use when importing. And when we do the import, it's going to give you all the results there at the bottom as well. All right, so that's that option. The next option is to fix references using scanref. So you do have the option to have these both checked on, but I don't recommend doing that because they're just going to fight with each other, right? If you have this both checked on, it'll run the reference file directly, fix them, and then next it'll go and fix references through scanref, and then overwrite the fixes that were just done there. So it doesn't really make sense to have them both on. So for the fix refs or scan refs, I did give you a little bit more options here to help make sure that it finds the right files and doesn't search in the wrong spot. So you can check on all of the folders in your WorkSet that you want it to check for the reference files. So this will be nice, especially if there's duplicate file names that maybe in the 300 survey and then also in the imported one. So you can leave those checked off. And then the next thing I added is if you actually right click here, and it'll open up another dialog and let you reorder. So this sets the search priority, which also can be handy in the fact that when scanref runs, if you know you have duplicate file names and you set the order up, it's going to grab the first one it finds, right? So if for some reason you had references here and here in duplicate file names, it would find these ones first. And then if there wasn't one in there, then it would search here, and then it would search here. So a little bit more control over how scanref works, a little bit easier than just running it out of the box. So if you hover over it, it'll tell you that. Right click to change priority. So that's what that's doing. I gave you further more options here to attempt to resolve those duplicate file name references. All right, so the way this is going to work is it's still going to run the scanref on all the dgen files. Then if it notices with all these checked on, whatever subfolders you have checked on, it'll go through all those. If there's any file names that are duplicated, it's going to keep track of those. And then it's going to look at the references using the application of your choice, so Connect Edition product. What it's going to do is it's going to open the DGNs, it's going to find the references, it's going to see if the references are calling out a file name that is duplicated. So basically going through all the DGN files, finding the references, and seeing if those references are going to a file name that is duplicated. If that condition is met, then it says, okay, I need to try to fix this duplicate file name. And so what it's going to do is it's going to know what file it should be going to, right? Since it read the dgen file. And it's going to run scan refs, but it's going to further subdivide this search path. So it's going to go into the subfolders. It's going to figure out how far down it has to go to eliminate that duplicate file or that chance for it to go to the wrong file. So this whole process down low is all about running scan refs. So it's going to attempt to fix the duplicate file names, but there's going to be cases where it's just impossible for the scan ref to get the right file. If you have one file that has multiple references, and say their one reference is going to a location that you need to get rid of to eliminate the duplicate file, well, you still need that location for that reference to be solved. So it gets a little fuzzy here. Hopefully that I did a good job explaining what's going on. Basically, this is going to run scan refs. It's going to run through it the first time. If there are duplicates and you check this on, then it's going to go through and try to fix the duplicates the best it can. There's no guarantee here, which is why I think the first option is just better because it's doing everything directly. But there might be times where this way will work as well, because the fixed references directly is only going to look at the import locations, right? If for some reason you got references that you want to fix to non-imported locations within the project, then scanref would come in handy because you could check on those other locations, right? Like this, like these 300, 400 folders, right? All right, you can check those on, and then you could have scanrefs look into those folders and try to find those or fix those references with those locations. Right? So hopefully that made sense. So now let's go over an actual running the import. So if we're good with all the settings, we're going to hit import zip, and it's going to go through and unzip the file. It's going to start creating the import to folders. So you can watch what it's doing down here. You can see a little bit more information. Now I left the scan ref ones on just to show you what that one does. So you can see here it's running scan refs, and it brought up this dialog, and you can kind of see the process that it's running through on the scan refs. So I did pause it as it was running through some of that, just to save some time. But we can take a look at the results to see some of what happened here. All right. So it's going to basically tell you all the settings of everything you had set while it's running. All right. So it's telling you what it's going to do import. So you have a record of how all the settings were when you ran it. And it says here's importing the folders. So obviously the seed files already existed, or these folders existed. And it says imported these files. So some are created new, some are replacements if it was already there. And then we'll move on to the next part. So this one saying we didn't have it checked on, but it would still tell you what files or folders were not included, which is still nice to see. So even if you don't remove them, this will give you a record of the file and folders that were there that were not included in the import zip file. So that's nice as well. Um, then it says, okay, I put the file here in the 04 reference files, and then generate some lists. So that running the duplication or running the scan refs. So here it gave you a little bit of a summary. So it says, hey, I processed this file. The following references were found, were not found. So here's just showing you some information. Looks like it failed to open the dgenws file, but we don't really need to open that file, so I don't have to worry about that. Alright, so now it's going to run the scan refs. So I gave you a little bit of summary, resolved 12 of 14 references across 17 documents. Scan refs individually, so there didn't find any duplicate names. So it didn't need to run, but if it did, you'd see some numbers here. And then imported, and then created a log file and saved the log file. So let's go take a look real quick at what's going on here. So if we take a look at the seed file folder, you'll notice that the seed files got imported. So you'll also notice if I refresh my screen that these new import folders have been created, and so whatever files were included, and this is just a bunch of junk data, right? So all those got imported. What else I want to show you is back in all the 990 WorkSet standards folders, basically the files get imported with prefixes added to them. So this is junk data, so it added OHDOT IMP, but it looks like I had created it from HDR import, so a little bit extra data you don't normally see. Just when I was messing around, I forgot to get rid of that. But what you'll see is it just imported the 990 WorkSet standard files and actually changed those names to add those suffixes. Whereas the other root subfolders, like the 301, the 401, the file names do not change. Just the folder name gets that added prefix, so you know. So it's a subtle difference, just we're not going to duplicate up the 990. So all that should come in. And so the only difference here is if you would have had this use seed files as defaults checked on, then the seed files, when they got imported, they would not have added this suffix at the end. They would have actually overwrote the seed file that was there. Okay. So some other things it did was up in the 000 admin folder, you're going to notice it created an imports info. Okay. So you go there, you're going to be able to see all the import information. So this is the first one, so it says import 01. There's a date of when it happened. So there's a zip file that you selected. Right there is record to go back to. And then here's the log file. So everything in here is stored right there. And because scanref was on, here is the actual results from the scanref application. So you can dive in there and take a closer look at everything that process did. You can go in and take a look at the errors. If there was 2 that failed, right? So you can go find those 2 and be done with that. So next I want to quickly go over a re-import, right? So you can keep this application open and reselect these to repopulate, because right now it doesn't know that this folder was created just yet. But I kind of always recommend to just close and reopen it after you run that, just to make sure everything goes smoothly. So let me restart that. So now I'm going to come in here, I'm going to log into my data source again. Select my folder. Select my zip file. I'm going to do the same one just to show you kind of what happens. So here on a re-import, it's saying, oh, it looks like you already imported this. So it defaulted me to that folder that exists, the import folder, right? You could still say, hey, I want to import to a new one. But if it's from the same person, then you should just import to that current one. But this allows you to import multiple zip files from multiple people, right? So if you get one from one company, one from another one, you can still import and they can go to their own folders just fine, right? So I'm going to leave those on that. It will tell you like, hey, you can't put two folders to the same one, just so they'll go red. So there's that. This time I got this fixed references directly on. Let me overwrite that one, and then let's go ahead and import this time, so you can see a little bit what happens here. So that's successfully completed. You can take a look at the results here. So a lot of the same. This time everything pretty much already exists. All folders were included. So start the background process. Here's the results as it reads through those files of what it found. So it found, all these different references in all these files, all these models within the files. So just a good record of what it found when it processed through those files. So looks like it failed to check the seed files. So I'll have to look at that. But seed files shouldn't really have references, so not a big deal that it failed to check those out. All right. Now running background process, and this time since it's fixing it directly, I'll just give you all right there, fix reference, and then here's one that failed, reference file not found, here's one that's failed, reference file not found. So I purposely included those in the zip file, so I knew those were going to fail, but basically it says it can't find the reference file, so it can't fix it. So that must not have been included in the zip file. All right. So take a look, I'll refresh this view, you'll see this is my second import, so once this finishes refreshing, you'll see there's my import 2 and in the log file. Now this time I don't have a scanrefs log because it didn't run scanrefs, right? It only did that direct fix, which all those records are directly in the log. Okay. Some other things I wanted to show here was if we go and take a look at what it imported, what you'll notice is that it created a version. So it doesn't just directly overwrite a file on a re-import, right? It's going to create a version. So this would have been the first import, and now this is the second import. And it'll just keep doing that for all the files. So it never really overwrites anything. You're still going to have that record. So that's nice. You're going to see all those versions start popping in there. Same thing goes for like the 990 WorkSet standards. So you're going to start seeing a lot more versions come in here. But other than that, I think it'll be nice for people to be able to go back and see, oh well, the first one had this file. You can go and open that version and see what it looked like. So overall, I think this is going to be a nice tool. Fixed references directly, it's going to be really great. I think if I go and look at, let's see here, where did I put? Not there, here. If I go and look at, say, this file, you can see that it did find that reference and fix it for you. So the fixed references is, I think, a huge part of making this app really useful. So now you can easily pass around our work sets inside and outside of ProjectWise and have it fix the references for you. So if you guys have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to me. But hopefully you guys find this application beneficial.